The lights of the Seoul arena were blinding, but for Yuzu, they were merely a different kind of spotlight than the flickering bulbs of the prison workshop. The crowd roared, a wall of sound that would have crushed the nerd he used to be. But as he stood in the blue corner, adjusting his gloves, he wasn't thinking about the thousands watching. He was thinking about the weight of Wonjun's notebook tucked safely in his gym bag and the silent nod Do-hyun had given him in the locker room. Across the ring stood the Phantom, but the mask was gone now, replaced by the cold, calculating eyes of Hangul, the man who had once been Do-hyun's greatest rival before turning to the underground circuit. The first round began not with a bang, but with a terrifying silence. Hangul moved like a ghost, his footwork so precise it seemed he was floating an inch above the canvas. Every time Yuzu lunged, Hangul was already gone, countering with lightning-fast jabs that stung like hornets. Yuzu's shark training told him to keep moving, but the arena felt like it was shrinking. By the end of the round, Yuzu's left eye was swelling shut, and the commentators were already calling it a mismatch. Hangul leaned into the center of the ring, his voice a low, venomous hiss, telling Yuzu a prison-made amateur had no business standing in the light of professional glory. In the second round, Hangul shifted gears, moving from precision to pure brutality. He utilized a clinch technique that felt less like boxing and more like the life-or-death struggles Yuzu had faced in the yard. Every time the referee broke them apart, Yuzu felt a little more of his strength leaking away. He looked toward his corner, seeing Sunyoung and Yeonjun's faces pale with worry, but it was Do-hyun's calm, steady gaze that anchored him. He remembered the Uber-Mench telling him that a shark doesn't fight the ocean, it flows with it. Just as Hangul threw a massive overhead right designed to end the fight, Yuzu didn't retreat, he stepped into the ire of the storm. The impact of the counterpunch vibrated through the entire arena. Yuzu had used Hangul's own momentum against him, a technique he'd perfected while sparring with Sanghyup. Hangul stumbled, the first crack in his ironclad composure showing as blood trickled from his lip. The crowd's jeers turned into a deafening chant of Yuzu's name. Rage flared in Hangul's eyes, the same predatory rage Shokchan once had, and he began to abandon his technical mastery for wild, desperate swings. Yuzu stayed cool, his vision narrowing until the only thing that existed was the space between his fist and Hangul's jaw. The final round was a blur of sweat, blood, and sheer willpower. Both men were exhausted, their guards dropping as they traded blows that would have leveled ordinary fighters. In the final 30 seconds, Hangul whispered one last taunt, mocking Wonjun's sacrifice as a waste of a life. Time seemed to freeze for Yuzu. The noise of the crowd faded, replaced by the memory of the forgiven note. He didn't strike out of hate, he struck out of a duty to the living. A three-punch combination, faster than Hangul could track, sent the rival crashing to the canvas just as the final bell echoed through the rafters. As the referee raised Yuzu's hand, declaring him the world rookie champion, the stadium exploded, but Yuzu's eyes went straight to the tunnel. There, standing in the shadows, was Do-hyun, a small, rare smile touching his lips before he vanished into the back, knowing his student had finally surpassed the teacher. Yuzu stepped out of the ring, not as a victim, not as a prisoner, but as a man who had finally earned his own name. He walked toward the locker room, passing the rows of flashing cameras, knowing that while the tournament was over, the responsibility of his strength was a weight he would carry with pride forever. The legend of the feared fighter has reached its peak, but every champion has a target on their back. If you want to see the aftermath chapter where a new challenger from Yuzu's past emerges to claim the belt, hit that subscribe button right now. Drop a comment with champion if you think Yuzu is the greatest underdog in history, and share this video to show the world that nerds can become kings. The championship belt felt heavy on Yuzu's waist, but the weight in his chest was heavier. Fame brought more than just money. It brought a spotlight that reached into the darkest corners of his past. While Yuzu spent his mornings coaching kids at the neighborhood gym, a storm was brewing in the Professional Boxing Commission. A new legal loophole had been exploited, a reinstatement clause for athletes who had suffered career-ending injuries due to criminal assault. Shok-chan was back. He hadn't returned as a street thug, but as a meticulously rebranded, redeemed warrior, with a high-tech prosthetic lens covering his blind eye and a legal team that painted him as the true victim of Yuzu's high school assault. He'd cleared his record. Shok-chan had spent his years in the underground training under the same masters who had once taught the syndicate's elite. He didn't want a street fight. He wanted to take everything Yuzu had worked for in front of millions of viewers under the strict rules of the World Boxing Council. The press conference was a circus of calculated cruelty. Shok-chan sat across from Yuzu wearing a tailored suit that hid the scars of 1,000 brawls. He spoke softly into the microphone, apologizing to the public for his troubled youth, while staring directly into Yuzu's soul with a gaze that said, "I am going to kill you." He officially challenged Yuzu for the World Rookie title, citing his previous rank as a national amateur champion before the incident. If Yuzu refused, he would be stripped of his belt for ducking a mandatory challenger.
Yuzu's team was divided. Sun Yang wanted to settle it in an alleyway, unable to stomach the sight of Shok-chan acting like a saint. But Sang Yab, his shoulders still clicking from the syndicate's attack, reminded them that the ring was the only place where justice was final. Do Hyun appeared in the gym that evening, his face grimmer than usual. He warned Yuzu that Shok-chan's new style wasn't boxing, it was counterpoint execution, a lethal method of waiting for an opponent to breathe before shattering their rhythm. The training camp was a descent into a new kind of hell. Yuzu had to unlearn the shark fluidity that had won him the tournament, as Shok-chan was specifically training to bait that movement. They spent weeks in a darkened gym, Yuzu wearing a blindfold to sharpen his hearing, learning to feel the displacement of air before a punch was even thrown. He wasn't training to fight a boxer, he was training to fight a ghost who knew his every fear. Every drop of sweat was a payment for the sins of their shared past. As the night of the redemption match arrived, the tension in the Seoul Dome was suffocating. Shok-chan entered first, greeted by a crowd that had been manipulated into seeing him as a hero. When Yuzu walked out, the silence from the confused fans was louder than any booing. As they met in the center of the ring for the final instructions, Shok-chan leaned in, his prosthetic eye gleaming under the stadium lights. He whispered, "Today, the nerd finally learns that some nightmares never end." The bell rang and the first punch Shok-chan threw didn't aim for Yuzu's head. It aimed for the exact spot where Wonjun had been sapped. The final war between the victim and the bully has moved from the classroom to the world stage. Who do you think holds the moral high ground now? Subscribe and hit the bell icon to catch the round-by-round breakdown of the most controversial fight in history. Tell us in the comments, can a bully ever truly be redeemed? Or is Shok-chan just playing a game? Share this video to support Yuzu as he faces his greatest demon. The 12th round began with the heavy scent of copper and sweat. The stadium was a roar of white noise, but inside the ring, it was a tomb. Yuzu's ribs were screaming, each breath a jagged knife twist, while Shok-chan's face was a mask of swelling and calculated malice. Shok-chan had fought a dirty, surgical fight, targeting Yuzu's old injuries with the precision of a butcher. But as the clock ticked down the final 3 minutes, the redeemed warrior facade began to crumble. Shok-chan was gasping, his prosthetic eye flickering as Yuzu's relentless pressure forced him into the corner he had spent his life putting others in. Yuzu saw the opening, a slight lag in Shok-chan's left shoulder, the exact tell Do-hyun had warned him about. With a sudden burst of speed, Yuzu unleashed a 3-punch flurry that sent Shok-chan's head snapping back. The bully's guard dropped, his legs turning to lead, leaving his temple completely exposed. In that split second, Yuzu's body coiled for a counterpoint strike, a devastating, illegal downward elbow disguised as a hook that would not just knock Shok-chan out, but permanently shatter his cervical vertebrae, ending his ability to ever walk again. It was the perfect, silent revenge for Wonjun, for the prison, and for the years of terror. The world slowed to a crawl as Yuzu's arm began its descent. He saw the flash of Shok-chan's genuine fear, the realization in the bully's eyes that he was finally at the mercy of the nerd he had once broken. His knuckles were inches from the kill shot when a memory flickered. Wanjun's notebook, the word forgiven written in shaky ink. He realized that by crippling Shok Chan, he'd be finishing the bully's work, becoming the very monster he had spent his life fighting. In a pivot that defied physics, Yuzu shifted his weight at the last microsecond, turning the lethal elbow into a clean, lightning-fast lead hook that connected squarely with Shok Chan's jaw. The sound of the impact was like a gunshot. Shok Chan didn't just fall, he went limp before he even hit the canvas, his body collapsing in a heap in the center of the ring. The referee didn't even bother to count. He jumped between them, waving his arms as the medical team rushed in. Yuzu stood in the neutral corner, his chest heaving, his hands trembling, not from fear, but from the sheer weight of the choice he had just made. He had won the title, but more importantly, he had kept his soul. As Shok Chan was loaded onto his stretcher, conscious but defeated, he looked at Yuzu not with hatred, but with a hollow, crushing sense of inferiority. The announcer's voice boomed through the rafters, declaring Yuzu the undisputed champion, but Yuzu was already unlacing his gloves. He walked over to the edge of the ring where Du Hyun stood, the mentor's eyes bright with a rare, fierce pride. Yuzu didn't look at the cameras or the belt. He looked at his own hands. They were scarred and bruised, but they were clean. He had finally closed the book on Shok Chan, not by destroying him, but by outgrowing him. As he exited the arena, the fans who had been silent at his entrance erupted into a chant that shook the very foundation of the building, finally recognizing the true heart of a champion. The saga of the nerd who became the world's most feared fighter has reached its final bell. Yuzu chose mercy over malice. Do you think he made the right call, or did Shok Chan deserve to feel the full weight of Yuzu's pain? This is the end of this chapter, but Yuzu's journey as a mentor to the next generation is just beginning. Subscribe now so you don't miss our special on Yuzu's first student. Comment "True Champion" to show your respect, and share this video to spread the message that true strength is the power to choose who you become.